You want to participate?
Yeah, sure. Someone told me about it.
We're arguing capitalism is liberation.
Okay.
If you could stand on the neutral first before we begin. All right, there is a bit of ambient noise, so if you folks could just, when we array ourselves around, speak up a bit when we talk. I'll try to do the same. So we're gonna explore this claim and the reasons why you hold the position that you do on capitalism is liberation. So for this claim, think to yourself where you fit, what from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Now, on one, I'll ask you to move. So capitalism is liberation. 3, 2, 1, and move. Okay, awesome. So capitalism, are you all folks in the right place? Capitalism is liberation. So we have 2 slightly disagree and 2 slightly agree.
Want to do it?
I gotta go to class.
Okay. If anybody else wants to hop in, feel free at any time. All right. So I'm going to start, I guess, over here. What is your reasoning for slightly disagreeing that capitalism is liberation?
My reason for slightly disagreeing is I believe what we've seen in capitalism so far is that it really comes out that there are class systems in order for it to work. So I think no matter what, no matter race or gender, in a system such as capitalism, a type of class system emerges where there will always be a class that won't have as much freedom or as much ability, as much liberation as the upper class.
Okay. So for you, it's a matter of the class distinctions that are created with the capitalistic system. All right. And Elijah, what is your reason for standing on slightly disagree?
Yeah, I would have to say I slightly disagree. Because even though I think it creates the most free, like, chance for success, I think that like liberation is just dependent on a lot more than economics. So I feel like if you just say capitalism is liberation, it leaves out a lot of other factors that liberation could also be. So like you can't be liberated just through capitalism, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's other factors.
Yeah.
So that moderates your position to slightly rather than any more than
Yeah.
or any less.
Very, very slightly out.
Okay. Just slightly on the.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Kiam, can you tell me? I see you're on slightly agree, so nobody has any strong position on this claim. We're all slightly. So why is it that you slightly agree that capitalism is liberation? What are your reasons for that?
So I was making this decision based on the thinking that a country must choose between either capitalism or socialism or communism.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think any of the economic, I think any of that decision will be not liberating. But capitalism itself does have some kind of liberation in it, as in it allows some kind of social mobility and allow people from the lower classes to move up, not like completely inhibiting.
Does any of your experience in your home country shape your view contribute to your view on this? Or is it you as just an observer making an understanding based on the reasons that you see?
I am basing my decision on the U.S.
On the U.S., okay.
Since I think the U.S. is the perfect example of capitalism.
I didn't hear the last part.
I think the U.S. is the perfect example of capitalism.
Okay, yeah. Fernanda, what's your take? So you're also slightly agree. Sorry. Why do you hold that position? What's one reason?
Well, I think that it is true that there's more to just capitalism to be liberated, But as I'm thinking liberated, at least how I'm understanding it right now, is that it gives you the chance, the freedom to pick for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And in a capitalist system, like I'm just thinking about like owning land or owning like your own pair of clothes. And like, I mean, it's as simple as like being able to buy what you want. That helps you create your identity, which like in a way that makes you a lot freer. But it's also the sense of like being able to own your own stuff and not having to be dependent
Mm-hmm.
on anyone else, like a government. And I think that specifically not having to be dependent on like, let's say, the government, it allows people to have control and like be able to apply other systems of like governance, like democracy or other stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to come back over here now. Everyone is very moderate in their positions, but I'll still ask the question: what would it take for you? What reasons would you need to see? What evidence would you need to see to move one line, either towards, say, the neutral?
I could start. I think one reason why I don't think it's purely liberation is like monopoly. I feel like if you take capitalism to its logical extreme, you'll just have a few big companies or like elites kind of controlling everything like a puppet. So I think you need some government intervention to make sure a monopoly doesn't happen. And if, capitalism is just totally free markets, then I think that wealth kind of collect at the top eventually. So some government intervention is then needed to make capitalism more free than it is for small business and things like that. So I would need to see some evidence that that's not true, I guess, that like monopolies won't inevitably form. If that makes sense.
Okay. I think this is a good time, and I'll continue with what I was just doing to ask the question. But I'm going to pause for just a moment to get clarification on our terms. Now, we have two terms here that could mean different things in all of our heads. All right, so let's start with the first one, capitalism. How would you define that? And we'll see if we can converge here a bit. So how do you define capitalism? Because from what I'm hearing already, free market seems a part of the conceptual framework by which you interpret what capitalism is.
I would say capitalism is a way of organizing the economy around free markets and little to no government intervention.
So organizing the economy?
Yeah.
Free market.
Yep.
How do you define capitalism, Maddie?
I would define it pretty similarly to that. I was thinking more in the sense of the U.S. probably, since that's what I'm used to, with there being some government intervention. But I'll agree to that definition as well.
So I guess the question, we can play with this a bit. I want you to think about is, could regulation be a part of a capitalistic system? Right. I think that's up for contention here. Let me get the everyone's definition first before we revisit that. Kiam, how would you define capitalism?
I agree to that, but I would add that capitalism encourages privatization of property.
What?
Capitalism encourages privatization of property and property.
We'll keep it simple. Just say private property. So, private property is a part of that. Okay. Is there anything that you would add, change to what is put up here, Fernanda?
No, I can agree on that.
Okay. Okay. Now let's revisit this conception of regulation, because I think this is important, because if you can radically change the nature of what capitalism is if you have regulation or don't have it. So, can you have capitalism with regulation?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so you've changed your mind a bit then. Because you originally thought it was just...
I would say, it's like little to no, but I think that just on the spectrum of like economics, you would have like I guess communism and capitalism on one side. So I think you can have like capitalism with regulation. It just wouldn't be in its purest form.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
Want to jump in? Where do you?
Yeah, feel free to jump in. So capitalism is liberation. You can jump in wherever you feel that you fit on it. And we were just defining terms. I'll get your reasons here in a minute. We're going to finish defining terms. Sure. So this is our new experience. So how would you define capitalism? So we're going to start with that first.
Basically just a market economy, pretty simply.
Would you agree with these are aspects of capitalism here?
I would agree that regulation is a part of like our system, but it's not inherent.
Okay.
I would disagree with that. It's inherent.
So the U.S. market economy.
I would say it does. It is. There is
It's been a
regulation.
mixed economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fails regulation.
Yes.
Is it fair to call the economy of the U.S., which is a mixed economy, capitalistic?
Yeah.
Is the U.S. capitalism?
Yes.
Because if it is, I think we probably have to say that regulation is a feature of capitalism because U.S. that's a feature of U.S. capitalism. Is that fair?
Like it is a feature of U.S. capitalism. I
Yeah.
agree. I just don't think it's inherent. Like there could be a market economy without regulation. That is something. I think that it would make more sense to like.
So I guess, are we talking hypothetically in a world with perfect capitalism?
Or are we
Or are we
talking about
focusing on?
U.S. capitalism? Because I would
US
agree if that's U.S. capitalism, regulation should be a part of the definition.
Let me see if I could pose the question like this: are there different types of capitalism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that this is just a broad bucket for different types. Say the laissez-faire is what I'm hearing
Yeah.
folks trying
Yeah.
to point to,
Yeah.
which is one system, and then there is a mixed sort of economy. And I'm not an economist, so let me say that I don't want to get myself in any economic trouble here, but use my modest understanding here. Fernando, what did you want to add?
I just wanted to say that I think capitalism is an idea.
Is an idea?
It's an idea and it's a theory.
It's
How
a theory.
it's applied is what's different. And that ends up being aligned with what each constitution in the country has. I think that regulation is a part of both capitalistic systems because that's how we have managed to organize our society to work.
Mm-hmm.
But like, again, I'm not a U.S. citizen, so
Yeah.
my perspective's a little different, I guess. But I think.
Do you feel comfortable sharing anything about your native economic system?
It's a capitalistic system,
Okay.
and it's being currently, for the past 6 years with the government that was elected, it's been trying to be morphed into a communist system.
Okay. All right. So we've defined a bit capitalism. The last word, because this is a nebulous word too, liberation. What is meant by that? And then the new folks that jumped in, I'm going to ask you for your reasons for where you stand in just a moment. But let's go through this word and just get a sense of, this could mean different things to different people. What does liberation, I'll just go around clockwise here. What does liberation mean to you?
To me, it's the ability to act for oneself.
Okay.
The ability to make one's own decision.
So we're talking about agency, the ability to act. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
What is liberation for you?
It's synonymous with freedom, so that just comes with everything that freedom comes with it. Like I said, agency I agree with. I think your freedom to be yourself in general and not have that hindered by others or by the government also.
Okay, good. And Maddie, what is liberation for you? Anything you want to add or change to what we have here?
I would have to say that's pretty good so far.
Okay.
I think I would have to agree. Yeah, liberation to me is the ability to act um, without restraint.
Restriction.
Restriction.
So there's a freedom to and a freedom from that is built into this sense of agency. So the don't fret on me as well as the freedom to act and do as well. Elijah, anything that you would add to this?
No, I think yeah, I think that sums it up.
Because all
pretty
we're
well.
trying to do is just get common ground.
Yeah.
On
Yeah,
terms of-
absolutely.
terms. Anything you would add, Fernanda, to this? Kiam? I don't know your name, sir.
Just call me Tony.
Tony.
Yeah.
Okay, nice to meet you, Tony.
Nice to meet you. I was over there, and then he told me about this. I think this is cool. Yeah.
Awesome. So anything in terms of definition, in terms that you would add to liberation, does that feel complete to you, or anything that you would change or add to that?
Yeah, I think that's cool
Okay.
so far.
All right. Now I want to, for the new folks that stepped in, we have two on strong. I assume you're on strongly disagree.
Oh,
Is that right?
yes. Yeah.
Okay. So can you tell me the reason why you strongly disagree that capitalism is liberation? What's the reason? The reason that you your best reason.
My best reason, because I don't think that capitalism, in its purest form, which I think most of us can agree is free market, is
So laissez-faire.
yes. I don't think that's liberating for anyone. I think it turns it into a sort of gamified system where there are winners and losers who are chosen not because they worked hard, but because they got lucky. And I think that if there are more regulations put in place by the government in comparison to what we're heading towards now, things would be a lot more free for a lot of people. You would have more chance to be free, both financially and just like with your expression of yourself socially, I guess. I think that if you, yeah, I'd say that's it. That's my best one.
Okay, I'm going to experiment and try something different here. What I'd like for everyone to do is reset on neutral, because I see there is going to be a problem with the understanding and meaning here. So I'm going to have you all reset, and we're going to argue two different claims here. We're going to start with one and then move to the other. The first one is, we're going to qualify capitalism as free market capitalism, no regulation. So this is what we're going to mean. So free market capitalism is regulation. We're going to explore that first, and then we'll say regulated. We'll do that one next. Okay. So for those of you, we're going to qualify. Say free market capitalism is liberation. Move to your position in 3, 2, 1, go.
We are allowed to stay neutral.
Yes. Yes.
This is no regulation.
So no regulation whatsoever. So this is purely free market capitalism. Okay, so this changes the array of people's positionality. I see that there is no one any agree. I've heard from here. Fernanda, I see you've changed with the qualification from slightly agree to slightly disagree.
Yes.
With this qualification, why did you change the measures?
I think that with the free market, it's very true that the social classes are not, like, there's one that's always going to be in favor and the other one that's going to lose. And if we are talking about freedom, people that don't have the means to own anything or buy anything or make anything for themselves, it sounds bad, but they don't get freedom. Like, they're going to be kind of like, they're going to be the pawns of the people that have the means to do it so they can get something out of it. So without regulations.
So the counterclaim that we potentially explored, which is capitalism is exploitation, right, seems to be more true than this one under these conditions.
Under a free market, yes.
Okay. Now, interestingly, I also saw, Elijah, you moved from slightly disagree when we qualified it to neutral. What made you move that direction
Yeah.
with
so
this qualification?
I would say like just free market and liberation are, I would say like synonymous with each other. So it just it would make more sense that if you had a completely free market, you would also have liberation. However, the reason why I'm not over on the agree side is because, again, if you take that to logical extreme, you would have like centralization of wealth at the top. So you'd have like probably like literally 5 huge companies that controlled every single industry. So that would just mean that there is no freedom to actually get into the industry or to make an economic gains for yourself more than working for those huge companies. So like there's no entrance to actually, there would be no social mobility, or there would be like a lot less social mobility, because rather than having the chance to make your own company and gain work for your own capital, you'd be working for someone else's, which doesn't that restricts choice for a lot of people, I would say.
So this ties directly. So the freedom starts to be limited.
Yeah.
I'm also hearing that you believe that there would be greater barriers to entry
Yep.
into the market economy.
Yeah.
Does that sound? Am I understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And Tony, right?
Yeah.
I think you were on agree, and with this qualification added, you moved to neutral. What made you move to neutral?
Elijah kind of touched on it already with decentralization of wealth. I think, monopolies are interesting, and I think that if there was, like Elijah said, let's say there's 5 companies that had all all regulations on what could be and how that specific wealth infrastructure was fluctuating. I think that that doesn't allow for drive of innovation. One of the reasons why I like capitalism is because I think innovation's allowed.
Okay.
I think innovation's allowed, and I think that there's a centralization that it doesn't really allow for maximum amount of innovation. I think innovation is important as times change.
Okay. I'm going to actually put you in conversation a bit here with some folks who strongly disagree with this claim. So Tony has argued that, or he's interested, he's raised the point about innovation. What's your take on innovation? Is innovation something to be valued? And if so, if this is not the way to do it, do you think this system encourages innovation? And if not, what would be the alternative?
So yeah, innovation is 100% needed for society to continue advancing. Whether that be technological or just in general, innovation is very important. I do think sometimes in a capitalist society we run into innovation for innovation's sake. There's a lot of things that we change, just to be different. Or sometimes we run into innovation that actually makes products worse. I think a lot about cars, how cars over the years, with things like planned obsolescence, have made the cars worse quality. And this is found through almost every sector of the market. But you can innovate as much as you want, but if you're not making a better quality product, you're just adding more features. That is something that is not as inherently good as just pure innovation.
So you're taking issue with sort of a culture of consumerism. I'm going to check in with some folks here too. Just randomly, Elijah. I didn't get your name.
Caden.
Caden?
Yes.
What's your name? Jasper. Jasper. Okay. So Caden had brought up this concept of planned obsolescence. Are you familiar with this concept?
Yeah. Yep.
What do you make of it?
I think, isn't it illegal?
No.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty confident that
if it's abhorrent, if it's very apparent, yes, it is. But I'm talking about laptops used to last for 10 years now.
Yeah, but isn't I thought that a company wasn't allowed to purposefully make weaknesses in their product so that you would have to buy more of them.
Oh,
It would
okay.
be very hard to
making argument towards speaking.
control.
Aren't we talking about no regulation?
Yeah, but there's different types of obsolescence, right? So technically, I'm just supposed to be a facilitator here, so I'm maybe breaking my role a little bit. But just to help you out, insofar as I understand it, and I may not fully grasp it either, but So like when Apple comes out with a new phone, they plan the obsolescence of the prior one through branding and sorts of things. So there's that, but there's also the quality of the product too, so that I think, for example, of like car manufacturers where they set the precision standards vary from cars in the U.S. to cars manufactured in Japan. Um, it doesn't make the vehicle poor quality. It just makes it last as less as long as say other cars manufactured elsewhere. At least that's my understanding, and I could be wrong, but I'm probably breaking my role here as a facilitator.
No, that helps.
Just wanted to help you
Yeah,
out.
that helps.
Here. Okay. Yeah. So planned obsolescence is an idea that could fit into the cluster of the stuff that we talk here. I want to maybe revisit, maybe get some folks into conversation with each other. So, what would you want? So, Jasper, right?
Yeah.
If I could ask you, what would you want Kiam to know that why you hold the position and why you think it would be worthwhile for someone to move, say, from neutral to at least one? What do you think might reduce our folks on neutral's confidence in the position? What do you know, or what reasons do you have that hold you on this position?
I mean, I just think about like the top 1% in terms of how much power they hold over us.
Mm-hmm.
There's been sort of this trend of like associating yourself to a big brand nowadays. Like I feel like that has never really historically been the case, but now because of like huge companies like Amazon and Apple allowing for really cheap products to be made, and like everyone has a phone now, and I feel like not everyone needs a phone, but because Apple exists now, we all have this new thing that we have to pay so much money for, and the cost of living is just getting higher and higher to the point where I think just the middle class is eventually going to die, and that does feel a bit like society's collapse. I don't really know what's going to happen when that happens. I know I will not be in a good place because of it, but because of free market capitalism and sort of our shift towards that, are headed towards a death of the middle class.
Do you think your generation has it worse off than previous generations?
In terms of what?
Economic opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. It was even easier to get into like a college in the past, but that's also been capitalized and turned into a corporation.
Okay. Let me ask here, because we're going to switch the claim here and reset the claim here in a minute. Let me ask, let's see, Kiam, what would it take for you to move, while you're on neutral, what would it take for you to move what evidence would you need to move in either one direction to increase your confidence in this direction or that direction? Just a little bit. What would change? What evidence would you need to see to go in either direction? I understand this requires a little bit of imagination too. It's like what actually do I need? What evidence do I actually need to change my mind? Right, is what I'm asking.
So, kind of building on what Jasper said,
Mhm.
I do think that the top 1% do hold a lot of power, but I also believe in like how that pressure will create societal momentum, and that momentum will somehow be able to defeat those top 1% in some way or another. I don't know.
Okay.
That's why I don't
Do you
totally.
think that's possible under a free market capitalism?
I think so.
What's that?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah.
Do you think it would be more achievable under free market capitalism or regulated capitalism? So in other words, here's what I'm saying. Let me try to rephrase this. If, as a number of people have suggested, having wealth concentrated in the top 1% is a problem, if people agree on that, then ameliorating that problem, making it less problematic than it is, making it less worse. Would free market capitalism do that? Would regulated capitalism do that? Or would neither one of them do that? Is it just a product of capitalism no matter what, and it's just, we're going to have to accept it?
It's just the product of capitalism.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And is that something that we should have tolerance for, or is it totally unacceptable?
I think it is something that must happen, and also I also believe that the collapse of those 1% people is also something that will happen.
Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reset this, and we're going to do the other version. If you can have folks come back to neutral. And I'm very curious of how this is going to shake out here. Do this. And I'm going to say, regulated capitalism is liberation. And of course, there's degrees of regulation, so we could talk about that too. But what we're predominantly thinking, it is a capitalistic system that is regulated. So I'll have you go ahead and Ray on 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay, so it's become pretty clear that this is a point of contention and agreement that must be brought into these conversations about capitalism, the idea of regulation. Okay, so you folks haven't changed. You've changed quite a bit. You've changed. I think everybody changed except you two. All right, so my take is that you hold your position very strongly. What is, and I got Jasper, remind me one more.
Caden.
Okay, Caden. What is the reason for the high level of confidence in your position? And strongly disagree.
Sure, I've done, this is something I've done a lot of reading and thinking and like exploring about. I don't think capitalism is the best way to organize society in terms of a liberation way or in terms of an efficiency way. I think it is liberating for those who can make it, but for those who cannot, it is not liberating. You don't have the access to a lot of the starting materials, costs, and everything to start a business. You can't start a business a lot of the time, and if you can't get a loan to buy a house, you just can't buy a house, especially now. As wealth is pushed more and more to the top, regulation or no, that's still happening. There's less and less capital for those in the lower class, middle to lower class. I also think that
I'm going to pause you for 1 second. So economic inequality,
yes,
just to make sure. Okay. Now, there's one thing I want to try here, since I actually have folks on strongly disagree and strongly agree. Is that your best reason, or do you have other reasons you think are stronger?
Against the claim.
Yes, against the claim. I'm not going to have you say it. I want to.
That's probably the best reason I can think of is the
Okay.
difference between the difference between opportunities.
So inequality in society.
Inequality in general, yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to have. So we have one. I probably should have waited for this. Now that I think about it. What I'd like you to do is maybe in your phone, take out your phone, just somewhere where you can take a note. And we have several folks on agree here, and a couple folks on strong disagree. And Maddie, with you in the middle, you can sort of poke around. What I want you to do is write down what you think is the strongest reason, and I sort of did spoiler here for this one. Sorry about that.
Very good.
What do you think is the strongest reason for holding the position on the other side? What do you think a person standing over here, what is their reason for their standing over here? And then I'm going to ask you to share those. So for those that agree, what do you think would be the strongest reason for disagreeing with regulated capitalism is liberation? And for those of you that disagree, what do you think is the strongest reason to agree with this? And Maddie, you can sort of try to figure out both if you want. Just in your head.
Are we trying to figure out what the strongest reason for over
Yeah,
those?
if this is an exercise in empathy to see what you think would be the strongest reason to hold that position, right? Just try to get you to think from the other side.
Oh, we're thinking.
You're thinking of
What
yeah.
they would say.
Yeah. So genuinely, what do you think would be the best reason for standing on the other side? It gets you to empathize a little bit with those that disagree with you. You're welcome to hop in. Yep. Okay. Okay. Everybody got a reason down? All right. I'm going to actually start with you because I gave spoiler on this side. What do you think is the strongest or the best reason to hold the position of agree in some degree?
So my main thought was that in a market economy, based society, you can kind of like let the market decide what's a good and bad idea. That kind of gives everybody the freedom to like put their ideas out there and see if it's good or bad. Everyone has the opportunity to make it. Is kind of a sentiment that I feel would be held strongly. Yeah.
Now let me ask Kim, you're on strongly agree. Is that the reason why you're on strongly agree?
What is my reason?
No, I'm asking you, is the reason that he said your reason for standing where you are? You want him to repeat it?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, like everyone has the opportunity to make it. You can kind of like let the market decide if your idea is good or bad, or if your business is good or bad, for example. And kind of like giving the opportunity for anyone to try and fail or try and succeed.
Is that your best reason for standing here, or is it something different?
It is somewhat. Yeah, it is.
Okay, can you articulate it in your own terms? What is your reason for strongly agreeing?
What I originally had was with good regulations, good enough regulations, there will always be a way for someone to advance to on the social ladder and to perform what they wish to do. And thus, in that scene, the power that the top 1% hold is a bit less strong.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to engage you a little bit here too. What is your reason for agreeing with the regulated capitalism now? Because that moved you a bit there.
I would say exactly what Kim said. I think that when regulation is brought into the equation, capitalism, which, already provides the opportunity for people to participate in the economy, I think that with regulation, it will just only increase or it will decrease the inequality of opportunity that exists in an unregulated society. So, like in a regulated system, you could, for example, give out like tax incentives or like incentivize people to do certain actions, or even like, this might seem converse, but like have the government if you have the government cut regulations, then there's less barrier to entry for like a small business, for example. So I think that like with government interaction in the economy, capitalism is probably the best way to organize your economy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Knowing that you have two folks over here that strongly disagree with this position, what would you want them to know? What do you think is most important for them to understand about your position?
I think that if you just look at examples, like people in America that are usually against capitalism point to the Scandinavian countries as ways as economies we should model ourselves after, but they're actually more economically free on indices than we are. They just have a huge social net, which means they have a lot of regulation. So I think that going off of that argument, that if the U.S. were to have a bigger social net, we would have more. It would allow more people the opportunity to participate in the economy the way that the thought founders of capitalism had intended. It would also, with more regulation, you wouldn't have the centralization of wealth at the top, because with like taxes, if you consider that a form of regulation, for example, it would be a form of what's the word, like distributing wealth a little bit better, so that schools could be better funded, for example, versus a free market system which might call for very low taxes, so that businesses could just keep growing. So I think, yeah, that with regulation comes success, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
It tempers the.
Yeah. Instead of the logical extreme being a centralization of wealth, I think that it actually allows for a stronger economy.
Okay. I'm going to check in with Tony here. I'm trying to remember, what was your position on the laissez-faire or free market?
I said neutral.
Neutral.
Yeah.
You're neutral. So you moved just a bit to slightly agree.
Yeah.
Why do you think regulated capitalism is slightly agree with the claim that regulated capitalism is?
Oh, like why it changed?
Yeah. Why?
Okay.
Why do you slightly agree?
Yeah, I say slightly agree because I think some regulation does allow for. I'm gonna keep using the word innovation. I strongly believe in innovation. I mean, I feel like we wouldn't have what we have around us today because of innovation, and I think that with regulation, although companies and markets will try and find ways to squeeze money out of whatever products they have, I do think that people who are driven and are at a bottom class use that drive and try to use their niche or whatever they have in order to innovate. And I think that's what we need. I think we need people who are driven. And like, if I were to grab anybody from that perspective to understand, like, I wouldn't be here without that drive. I am a product of capitalism by coincidence. I am here because of capitalism. Like, I am poor. My parents are immigrants. I wouldn't be here without capitalism. And I hope that you guys can understand that. But I understand where you come from, strongly disagree. I completely see that.
I will, just as a footnote here, I will say in my years of engaging in conversation around this, I have seen differences from citizens and immigrants on this issue that I found fascinating. So that's just a footnote. That's all I would say. Maddie, you're on the neutral position, so you're not quite made up your mind on this. Why is it that you feel is it that you're just undecided, or you actually have two things, one that's pulling you this way and one that's pulling you this way, and you think they've canceled each other out?
It would be the two things that have canceled each other out.
Okay. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
I have a picture in my mind of the economic scale, one side being capitalism, one side being North Korea, communism. Government has full control over everything. Citizens can't control anything. They have decided for them what phone they're going to buy, what shows they can watch on the TV. Other extreme side, capitalism. I feel like either way, if you have extreme capitalism and extreme communism, in their own ways, it's going to inhibit liberation. And on either side, that you're not going to have full freedom, or freedom as we think of with liberation. And the claim is regulated capitalism. So it's neither of those extremes. But by thinking of it in that way, I'm struggling to even picture capitalism then being a way, or economic systems to be a way to measure liberation because of that. Because it's an economic system, and I understand how it pertains to people having the freedom to choose and having the freedom to pursue opportunities. But at least in the world we live in now, liberation is so much more concentrated with other ideas of, oh, you're free based off of your race, or you're free based off of your class, or so many of those other factors besides just your economic system that in my mind, it's hard for me to wrap my head around economic system being how we decide how liberated someone is or not.
Okay. How important in the cluster of factors for evaluating how free someone is, how much agency they have, do you think? What would be an appropriate way of putting this? Financial stability or financial freedom, or something like that is important in the cluster of overall freedom.
How important?
Or maybe if I phrase it differently, how important is class to freedom?
How important is class to freedom? See, I'm just someone who thinks too much. I think no matter what class you are, you'll still struggle, because if you're in the upper class, you're still going to be, at least in capitalism or in communism, you're going to be in a constant sort of race to keep achieving and to keep acquiring more wealth and to keep gaining more. But that's the same if you're lower class too, because you're still, the way that those systems are built is if you don't have enough, or if you don't have anything, you want to acquire more. But I feel like either way, no matter what kind of system it is, that is sort of the idea people have when it comes to that.
Okay, I'm gonna come to you folks here. So,
I feel like either way.
Yeah.
Jasper, what do you make of the things that Maddie has said? How would you contemplate and reflect on those thoughts?
Just to what you most recently said, I mean, I agree. I think in a capitalist system, the wealthiest people, once you achieve a certain level of wealth, the only thing that really matters is being able to protect and retain that wealth. And so your motivation is basically only to gain more wealth, which I don't think is like a good motivation for anybody to live. But I think under capitalism, it's very individualized, and that becomes the goal in your life. And I think under other kinds of systems, I am a leftist, but I don't know like if I would be more of a communist or a socialist. I just think that capitalism is probably not the answer. But I think for true liberation, in that you are able to have the most amount of freedom and the most amount of economic opportunity, the only answer would be anarchism, but I don't know if I even want that. So I definitely agree that I'm sort of torn within the left itself as to like what would be a better system than capitalism. I just don't know if we've found it yet. I think that it's a combination of things, probably.
So we haven't invented it yet, perhaps?
Probably not. I mean, I think in 2,000 years there will be no such thing as capitalism.
Okay.
And it'll be a part of history.
Do you understand the alternatives to capitalism as what I heard you say, as communism and anarchism?
I think there's a lot more. I think that
There's other alternatives too?
most of the alternatives are better. Yeah, I would say socialism or communism or anarchism are all better options to organize your society around capitalism.
Okay. This would be a new thing we can explore. So, if I can erase this.
Yeah, I guess where I'm at is like either way, no matter if it's like capitalism, communism, no matter the system, you're going to be a slave to something. In communism, you're a slave to the government because you're doing whatever the government wants you to do. But in capitalism, you're not a slave to the government, you're a slave to yourself and your own desires to continue to get more.
See, I'd agree.
So I guess that instead
Well,
of
in like the communist studies that have existed, like me personally, I argue those haven't been like true realizations of communist ideals. Like North Korea.
I can't-
Yeah.
Did I write that in a way that is fair to how you said it? Yeah. So socialism, let's reset to neutral. Socialism is a better way to organize economic activity than capitalism. 3, 2, 1, and move.
Make it
Nice array. Fantastic.
Am I good to hop in or?
Yes, feel
Yeah.
free to hop in. Please stand behind the card that you fits your positionality on this claim. So I'm just not sure if you're on agree or strong.
Strongly.
Strongly agree? Okay. Okay, so wow, we got a lot more people here. I want to talk to some of the new folks that jumped in. So Richard, I see that you joined us here. So we're going to explain socialism is a better way to organize economic activity than capitalism. You disagree.
Yes.
Why is it that you disagree? What is your reason?
I mean, for me, I think it's also just like a perspective based on what I'm used to already. But I don't really like the idea of everyone getting the same if I can't guarantee that there's going to be the same level of effort put into whatever said person is doing towards the economy or society. So I believe if you have somebody who's, really working hard, maybe, working harder compared to the other person, they're getting the same level. To me, at that point, the question kind of becomes, then what is the reason for this person working so hard if they're getting the same thing that someone else is going to get?
Okay. I think one of the things before I start getting around to everyone else that we probably need to do, like we did the last one, is define our terms.
Mm-hmm.
So what is meant by socialism? I'm going to stick with you for just a moment, and I'll go around. I won't do everyone because there's a lot of you here now.
Yeah.
What does socialism mean?
To me, I take socialism as everyone gets the same.
Okay, everyone gets the same?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that how you understand socialism, or how it's okay? Different? You different?
Yes.
All right, how would you define socialism?
Yeah. So from how I understand socialism, it is if you think about this is to simplify the term, but if you think about an economic spectrum from capitalism to communism, socialism is somewhere in the middle. Some people define it as a term that we like an economic system that we can use on our way to transition to communism. I personally am not. I don't think communism is a effective economic system, but I think socialism has a lot of really good ideas, like socializing certain public goods. I think is pretty inherently good. It's better than the current system that we have. I'd say a lot of people don't realize that we do technically live in a semi-socialist country because we do have certain socialized programs.
I think what you're doing is giving the reasons, which is good. I want to get to that.
Oh yeah, okay.
I'm trying to get a definition before we start digging in there a little bit. So
Okay.
The best that you can. In other words, when you hear the word socialism, what is the mental model that is conjured up in your mind?
Okay.
As concisely as possible.
Socialism is an economic system in which there is still currency. There is still an exchange of goods and services. There is still a free market, but there are government restrictions on that market, and the government can interfere. The government also uses tax dollars and other forms of generating government wealth to provide certain services, like socialized healthcare, for example.
Before you arrived, we argued the claim about regulated capitalism.
Okay.
And I guess my question, maybe some folks here would ask it too, what would be the difference between the way that you describe socialism and regulated capitalism? Because I'm not seeing the difference, at least on the way that you described it, so I might be missing something.
Yeah, I think socialism is a very broad term that can be used to describe a lot of different existing economic systems. I think regulated capitalism has less of an emphasis on public services and more so restricting businesses as to like what they can or can't do. Like for example, saying that a business can't like create a certain amount of pollution into the air or the water. Whereas socialism would take it a step beyond that and provide certain services.
Okay. Gabby, you're going to. So I see that you're on slightly agree. I'm going to get in the reasons. But I think I'm still working on definition of terms here. How do you understand socialism?
I mean,
Which your definition is concise as possible.
in contrast to capitalism, I think it's like an equity versus equality, where it's like in capitalism, people have equality in the market, so they have equal opportunity to do whatever they want within that market. And socialism is more equity, so the wealth is more spread out among the people, so that everyone is more like equal, no matter what they're doing.
So there's more planning.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything? So, Tony, let me ask you: do you agree with the definitions? Not the reasons, the definition. Is there any way that you would want to change it? Or let me just ask you: what is your definition of socialism?
I like the way Gabby put it. I think
Okay.
providing service to the public in order to make it more equitable. Although the economy's still flourishing, there's still people trying to gain wealth. Now, I think, as Gabby put it, they're trying to shrink that gap in some manner. And I kind of do like that definition a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Elijah?
I think I would go back to I didn't get your name, Richard. What Richard said a little bit, where kind of everyone gets the same. Because the way I think of it is, socialism is a way you organize the economy where the workers own the means of production, so they own the capital versus someone at the top of a company owning the company. It's like everyone owns the company collectively. So therefore, I think everyone gets the same or similar wealth out of what they're producing for the society.
Okay. I think we have a general understanding of what we mean with the terms. So I want to try something before I actually have you share your reasons. If you could just use your phone like I've done in the past, especially folks in strongly agree and strongly disagree. What I want you to do is think to yourself, what would be the best reason for holding the position that's opposite from you on this particular point? Socialism is a better way to organize economic activity than capitalism. So you're going to come up, what do you think the best reason is that these folks have? And what do you think the best reason is that these folks have? Yep, take care. There might be some overlap with the last claims that we explored because we're sort of in the same camp of things here. So the best reason. So if you're on disagree or slightly disagree, what would be the best reason you think to agree with this? And if for you, since you're on slightly agree, what would be the best reason to disagree? All right, now I'm going to start over here. Remind me your name one more time.
I'm Noah.
Noah.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think would be their best reason for strongly disagreeing with this?
I said the best reason that I can think of is that government control of the economy could stifle economic progress.
Okay. Government. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, government control and regulation of the economy can stifle economic progress.
Is that your reason? Is that your best reason?
No, not my best reason.
Not your best reason.
No,
But that's one of your
yeah,
reasons?
it's a very good reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that your reason? Your best reason?
Well, wait. What do you mean by stifle?
To
Hold back progress.
No, not stifle.
That's not your reason? Okay. Now I'm going to ask you, we'll ask what their best reasons are. What do you think their best reason is for strongly agreeing with this claim? This might overlap with some of the conversation we had, but previously on other plans. What do you think is the best reason?
I guess it's ensures well-being.
Say again?
I guess because they think socialism will ensure well-being of everyone.
Okay, is that your best reason? I think he's arguing that socialism will ensure well-being.
Will ensure well-being.
Yes.
I think that's a more broad point than I would use, but generally, I think so. Yeah.
Is that your best reason, or do you have a better reason? Without sharing it yet, but we'll get to it.
Want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, we can say that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Richard, what do you think would be a good reason for strongly agreeing?
I was gonna kind of fall into the same like thing of like social like support, like free healthcare and like all that type of stuff. I would find would be like really good reason in which to institute socialism, or at least to support socialism. Because I do think that's beneficial to have for the community. So that was also kind of like my best reason. It was just like beneficial.
I'm going to have to nudge folks to speak up just a little bit
my
so
bad.
everybody can hear each other.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the idea that the government can help support everybody, and just socializing like resources that citizens can use for their like self-betterment. So like healthcare, for example, is like the thing that first came to my head of why someone would agree.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you for each of you to share your reasons with it. So now you can go ahead and share. What do you think your best reason is? No.
Well, I mean, I think well-being is a broad but generally okay term to use. But I think that the opposite opinion would also argue that like capitalism would produce the most well-being, if I'm correct. I don't know if that's what you're arguing. I think that socialism is a economic system that would benefit the most people, and would benefit them better than our current economic system. Do you want me to elaborate more?
If you would like to, sure. No pressure to do so.
I'll leave it there.
Okay. Jasper, I'll go ahead and ask you since you're also a strong leader.
I think a social democracy allows bare minimum necessities for all people to be better met than if you were a capitalist system. Because in a capitalist system, wealth gets concentrated towards the top, and so a lack of wealth on the bottom means a lot of people's bare necessities aren't being met. With socialism and the government sort of intervening in that, it allows more concentration of wealth towards the middle, and allows a lot more people to still be like economically affluent if they choose to work hard and stuff like that, but they're at the baseline getting their needs for like healthcare, medical, like transportation, social services, stuff like that. That's all being met at a baseline, and so you're not being held back just based on your birth.
Okay. And I'm going to ask TJ, you're here now. You strongly disagree with this claim? Socialism is a better way to organize economic activities in capitalism. What is the best reason you have for strongly disagreeing?
Provides the best system for sustainability, and it's the only economic system that, while not perfect, has proven to work and to go the lower social classes and economic status to based off solely their hard work. I would use the example of an NBA player. They profit solely off their talent and ability, and they're paid according to their ability. And I think that's something that you would only see to a degree where it can be life-changing in a capitalist society.
And what do you
folks make of that? I think my counterpoint would be that there's no NBA players who are under 6 foot, so
I do want to put you in conversation with each other.
I don't think the
Get closer to the mic too, like. What was your name?
TJ.
Yeah. Whenever you speak, if you can get closer to the mic, that would help.
I don't think it's necessarily the case that under a capitalist system, no matter what, if you just work hard, you can make it as whatever you want to be. Especially within sports, where a lot of it just comes down to raw genetics and talent, because there's just so many people like in the world now that the training programs that you need to get to that level of skill, the height difference, it's all just been increasing the further into capitalism we get. So.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the MBA analogy was actually pretty good, because it is true that if you work hard enough and you prove your talent, then you can get into the MBA, but only if you've met certain criteria that aren't necessarily decided by talent. For example, being like, 6 foot, for example, that's something you have to be born with. And I think that is a pretty good analogy to like inheriting wealth or inheriting capital. I was also going to say with the social mobility thing, I would say that in a more socialist system, social mobility would be less emphasized because there would be a bigger middle class, and that would provide less reasons to even have to work to like gain a sustainable living wage. If you are impoverished in our current system, it is incredibly difficult to climb up the ladder rungs any any business or any industry to be able to have meaningful capital.
One thing I heard you say, I just want to make sure I understood. I believe you contended that socialism creates a larger middle class than capitalism. Did I hear that correctly? Okay. I want to get some folks in the middle to participate too, because we got extremes here, and I want to hear the folks in the middle. You're just slightly agree, Gabi.
Oh, I moved so I could be closer. But yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
I think I'd be more in the neutral.
You're
I don't
more
know if I'm
neutral?
allowed to change midway
Okay,
through.
you can change.
Yeah? Okay, cool.
That's the whole point of this exercise. Is you know, to calibrate your confidence in your position. So when I listen, after I finish listening to the folks in the middle a little bit, what I'm going to ask all of you is what it would take for you. What evidence would you need to see? We can start thinking some of this. If you'd like to move not all the way to the other side, but just one line toward that way. In your case, but I want to hear your reasons and your thoughts for where you are on neutral. So are you undecided, or are you on neutral because you're undecided, or are you on neutral because there's two conflicting things in your head that you think cancel each other out?
I think it's a bit of both.
Okay.
I just I have two things, but I can't decide which one's better, which one's worse.
Okay. Tell us about it.
So the first one, I mean, on this side, the capitalism side, I feel like having a free market and having that equality to do whatever in the market creates more opportunity for people to want to innovate, which especially in if you're organizing an economic, organizing economic activity, I feel like that's good because it causes people to want to move things forward, create new technology, stuff like that. But at the same time, in socialism, I feel like having ready, available things like healthcare and then wealth is more spread out, so that there is less of a economic. Oh my God, what's the word? I'm blanking on the word, but there's less. I don't know, just having things that you're able to take advantage of that are for free and are free to everybody, especially things like healthcare that should be a human right, in my opinion, are available to you. So there's kind of just two conflicting sides.
Social services and safety nets.
Yeah.
Some folks use word.
Yeah.
Okay. Tony, are you on slightly disagree or disagree?
I'm in the middle of both right now.
You got to pick one.
Okay, I'll stick with disagree then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you disagree?
I definitely see the point with things being seen as certain things that should be required, such as free healthcare, free housing. I completely see that. I think that it gets complicated because at what point do you stop at that? Should everybody just get everything for free? me personally, no. Sometimes people, when they get stuff for free, it's like, oh, I want more of that. Give me more. But you didn't earn that. Now, not everybody earned their wealth. Let's make that clear. Now, some people inherited it, and like what they do with that is pretty like up to them. But I definitely think that I'm gonna say like the word again, like innovation. Like if people are getting things for free, it's not gonna make them innovate. It's just gonna make them stay where they're at. They're not gonna. They don't have that drive, and I think a society needs a driving force. Someone needs to have a reason for why they should do something better, or something that makes them want to do something better, or have a new idea. And that's why I don't think that socialism is a better structure or way of organizing economic activity. I strongly believe in innovation, and I definitely want to jump back on the idea that not everything that's innovation is good. I understand that. I don't know what the solution to that would be. So if someone wants to like touch on that, that's cool. You know, like I definitely see that flaw. Not every innovation is a good innovation.
Do either of you want to reflect on reasons and thoughts from this side? If not, I'll continue. But I'll give an opportunity to pause and reflect on it.
So from what I'm hearing from you, well, the first thing you said was that you said that you're wondering at what point does it stop, and I think that's a good point, because it's hard to like gauge where we're at with just the term socialism, because that can mean so many different things, as I said earlier. I think it is good to distinguish it from communism, though, which is closer to people getting everything for free. I would argue that's probably not the case in actual communist countries. I don't think that people won't work if they're getting things for free, especially because in a socialist state, you still have currency that you can use to buy certain things. Like you're not getting your iPhone for free, you know, in a socialist state. So I think having like free healthcare or free housing will not decrease the profit incentive, because people still want material things. At the same time, I think you said that in a socialist state, people will want more and more for free. And I agree that like greed is inherent to human nature, but we're seeing that in capitalism too. People want more and more, and they build up their wealth without like investing it back into the economy, and that's what's ruining our current economic system. So I think that's a fair criticism on both sides.
Okay, and now I think one thing I'd like to ask all of you. Welcome, man. Are you on this claim? Are you on strongly disagree? You want to array yourself around the circle here, wherever you feel that you fit. What I would ask, especially the folks on the tail ends of things, on strongly disagree and strongly agree, but also those folks toward disagree as well. What would it take for you? What evidence would you need to see to move you, not all the way over here, but just one line that way? So what would it take for you to agree rather than strongly agree? And what would it take for you to disagree rather than strongly disagree? And for you folks, what would it take for you to slightly disagree rather than disagree? And what I'm asking you here is, what is the evidence? Well, and this requires you to think, you know, from the other side a bit too. So what sort of evidence would you need to see to reduce your confidence in your position just a little bit? Not totally obliterate, but reduce it. What would you need to see?
I feel like if I were able to see that, kind of like Noah was saying, that like people won't work less, then I would probably move more towards that side than just slightly disagree, because that's like just my biggest worry, is the fact that like I kind of like Tony was saying, like a big thing that I think is super important and like special with capitalism is how much it drives innovation and people to think about different ways to create things, but also to create profit for themselves. I mean, the biggest crush that I have against it is the fact that I'm worried that if things are given to everybody, people who are okay with kind of like this bare minimum idea of like, okay, I have housing, I have food, I have the healthcare, won't necessarily strive for more. They'll just be comfortable where they're at. But if I were to be able to see proof that would counteract that or go against that, then I would probably move more than just to slightly disagree.
So what I'm hearing, Richard, is what you would need is you would need empirical evidence that people's drives and incentives for behavior, economic behavior, are not diminished
Yeah.
under a socialistic system.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any of that evidence that you can supply, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that the USSR wasn't a capitalist system. I would call it semi-socialist. Socialist. We can call it socialist. Would you agree with that? Yeah. I mean, in the 20th century, the United States was competing with them at a pretty even playing field when it came to innovation, especially when it came to the space race, in which, the first...
And arms.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the first goalpost that was put in place in the space race was to get a person into outer space, and then the USSR won that goalpost, and then the US said like, oh no, we need to get a man on the moon. I think the USSR technically did beat us in that point in innovation. I mean, obviously, I don't endorse the USSR in most ways, but I think that is a way that we can see that there is innovation in non-capitalist economies.
Okay. Is that enough evidence to convince you to move to slightly disagree?
The only other thing there, I hate to like be a goalpost mover, like 100%. The only thing for me is like I feel like it might change a little bit when it leads to like national security or like. So I think that's a different factor than just people want like you don't want to have another country be a larger threat than you. So I think people will then work to try and protect their own country. So that's the only thing that I'm like, I see the fact that the work and innovation and strive for innovation was still there, but I also think that there was more exterior causes that were pushing that. So that's the only like still like hesitant point I have against that. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to come back to you now and ask the same question I asked over here. And I think we'll wrap it up here pretty soon too. But what I'm going to ask is, what evidence would you need to hear or see to move you from strongly agree, to be less confident in your position? What would you need to see? No, go.
Oh yeah. I would want to see evidence that a capitalist system provides superior economic and humanitarian justice to all of its citizens, not just the upper class.
Okay. Did you folks hear all that?
Yeah.
Okay. Maddie, bring you in. So you're on disagree.
Yeah.
Do you have that evidence that you could supply?
Well, I think one of the benefits of capitalism is one's ability to move up in a system, because it allows you to have economic gain. I mean, the only thing that I can think of is like people who have come from lesser economic standing and have made themselves like move up in the world in economic standing.
Okay. Do you have the evidence that Noah is asking for, or you don't have that evidence?
I think so.
Okay. Do either of you have that evidence? Can you say one more time?
Yeah, I'd like to see evidence that a capitalist system would provide superior economic and humanitarian justice than a socialist economy.
I'd like clarification.
Oh, this is good. So clarification is good. What do you need clarification?
When you mean organizing economic activity, are you factoring in humanitarian effects?
That's a good question. What do you folks think? Go ahead. Go.
I think Like,
Could you say it one more time, Kim, and then we'll have Maddie?
When the claim says organizing economic activity, does it include humanitarian aspects or just purely economic?
Okay, what's your thoughts?
I think it does include humanitarian aspects because money drives those a lot of times. Like you have to have money to have nice facilities for different things that the government owns. Yeah, and I think one example would be having capitalist markets and stuff allows people to have better products and better living situations than people do in socialist countries.
Is there evidence that you could supply for that? Or is this just a general awareness?
I think just generally that's what I feel like I have seen in the past from like history lessons and stuff. But I can't think of specific countries.
Okay. I think we'll go ahead, and we've spent a lot of time talking about capitalism and socialism here. I think we did a great work. But before I just put a pen in this and stuff, because we could definitely continue these conversations. And in fact, if you would like to try the one-on-one version, we have one-on-one street epistemology. You can do the recorded version and the unrecorded version. This is the spectrum version of this. I can't promise you that I did it the best as a facilitator. I'm still learning this myself. But is there any last thoughts or words anyone would like to say on anything in terms of our conversation? Cool. Go ahead, Tony.
My fraternity over here, we made bad product one time when we were fundraising for National Hispanic Institute, which gives back to the community. And no one wanted to buy our stuff. People told us, your stuff sucks. We didn't sell it. And then next day we came and made a product better. Everybody bought it. We sold out. All that proceedings went towards under-resourced Latino youth and things like that. And I think that's like really amazing that I get to be a product of capitalism and do that. But I definitely see where you stand. Like, why do people even need those resources in the first place, like education, stuff like that? So I completely see that right now. Like, what happened right there, like, why are they at a disadvantage? And I completely see that. I
think that sort of stuff can still happen under socialism because there is still a drive to like make a good product that sells from a business standpoint. It's just that everyone here, I mean, I would honestly see this as more socialist than if you went and did that like the outside world, because everybody here has enough economic viability to buy a shirt if they wanted to. Nobody is like, oh, I could buy this. I mean, I guess a lot of people probably are this way, but it's a lot different here where everybody's well educated and everybody has the health tools that they need from Hoagland readily available to them. Mm-hmm. I just think it's a lot different of a situation, but I agree that kind of thing is important to any economy where you're still going to have a market economy.
Any other final thoughts?
And you mentioned like the idea of like charity in capitalism, and I think charity is a great thing, but I think that it is maybe inferior to a socialized service, because charities, you only get funds to a charity when someone with wealth chooses to give something, right? And that leads to a lot of charities being underfunded, and a lot of people are without the help that they really need. So I personally think that government funding of socialized services would be a more efficient and better way to distribute those kind of services, especially when it comes to disadvantaged youths, especially if they're marginalized, as donors will have certain biases, unfortunately. Especially in a country where, I don't know, there's so much tension.
Okay, I want to thank you all for your participation and there. So thank you for stopping.
Are you a professor here?
What's
Are
that?
you a professor here?
I am.
What's your name? Sorry, I never caught your name. You
My
call all
name
of our
is-
names.
My name is Craig Pinkerton. I teach in
Oh,
the
okay.
communication department.
Okay, cool. Nice to meet you, Doctor.
In fact, some of the folks here are in my argumentation class,
Oh,
and this is just one way of
let's put that in.
manifesting cooperative argumentation, if you will.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be Spectrum Street epistemology.
Mhm.
I don't think I'm doing it 100% correctly, but I'm trying my best to follow the method here. You might want to try the one-on-one interviews too. So there's a facilitator. If you want to, we have one set up over here. But the role of the facilitator is not to insinuate any of their view into the conversation. It's just to help facilitate conversation and help people understand how is it they arrived at the belief that they arrived at. What is the confidence that you have in that belief, and are you justified in holding the confidence that you have where you are? So that's part of what the facilitator will do. So if you would like to join on a one-on-one, feel free to do that. I think I need a break from this. Okay. Thank you very much for stopping by.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Are y'all gonna keep doing this throughout the day?
Yeah, we're going to be here until 6
Okay.
p.m.
Gotcha. All right, I'll probably be back. Thank
All
you.
right, awesome.
You like a cup of homemade Brazilian lemonade? If so, on me.
It's pretty good. Okay, awesome. Thank you.